My name is Sonja. I'm a master's student at TU Vienna, and a year ago I did the Digital Architectonics module at ATTP, and I then continued, so to say, by writing my thesis with Vera, and this semester I'm also a tutor at the department. A year ago, I didn't know much about the work that was done at the ATTP because I didn't do my bachelor in Vienna. And also after one semester of my master, the teaching had to switch to distant learning. But I knew about the meta-architecture module and I wanted to join that. But as it wasn't offered in that semester, I then did the Digital Architectonics module. And I was a bit worried about the maths lecture, architecture and mathematics, which turned out to be not that scary after all. And generally I expected to gain a fundamental knowledge of digitalization and its effects on architecture. So I started to watch the videos of the lectures on YouTube. And in the beginning, I didn't understand much. It was until the first task that things became a little bit more clear. So the task was to compose 3 mobiles, all of them out of a list of architectonic concepts that were set out for each course. And my approach was to have each mobile consist of a pole, which would set the scale for the mobile, 2 weights that would act as stabilizing invariants. So if the weights would shift, the pole would shift also. And 2 dancers that would be articulations that have the ability to move and to grow. And by setting these concepts into relations within one mobile and also between the 3 mobiles, I realized that none of them were really that set in stone. And as these concepts were very abstract, how much movement abstraction allows and how dynamic it is. And what was encouraged in the class was to think about these concepts as characters. And like in the mobile, finding out their relations to one another, their weaknesses and strengths, their desires. And that for me was a really amazing way of thinking about abstract ideas. Because in the end, a character is always something very abstract. And to a certain degree, we always invent it ourselves. But we also all have a character. And we assign character to our surrounding all the time. So it's also a very intuitive way to deal with abstraction. And it makes it much more friendly. And I carried this thought into my thesis as well, where I write about the senses in the virtual. So what would be sound within a drawing, or what would be touch in a model, and what happened to these senses when we moved our work into the digital and they are now embedded in a code. And for the final coursework of the Digital Architectonics module, I wrote a glossary in which I thought about the concepts as characters, but wrote about them as concepts. And then I applied them to actual buildings. And as they were so free in their role as a character, this application was possible, and it was also very fruitful because it made me understand both the concepts and the architecture in a new light. And generally what I really appreciated was how light these heavy ideas were treated in the module, the heavy matter of digitalization together with mathematics and philology, and to learn that there is a light way to think and to talk about these things, and still producing output that is adequate to the subject. And in relation to architecture or the setting of the module in an architecture school, for me, it made me feel empowered to be the architect of my own knowledge. So, for example, instead of putting a window directly from the manufacturer in a plan, understanding how the window works, what it gives, what it receives, and therefore really knowing how to work with a window, with any window, and then in that way also being able to build a whole house and invite people in. And so what I did in the course or here at the department, and what I learned is not, for me, it's not something that I want to integrate into doing architecture. For me, it is architecture. Anything that is beyond how to draft or how to model. And so I would recommend the course to anyone who wants to look over the edge of that. And for sure it will be a bit unsettling at first to see the ground end, but you will also see so much more.